We reference the 90s a lot on this podcast, probably because we were both kids in the 90s. And it's also when I got really into comics, and I think you were getting into superheroes at least,
Yeah, for sure.
if not comics. Um, One of the strangest and happiest memories that I have of comics in the 90s is a company called Valiant Comics that seemingly came out of nowhere and just was one of the most popular publishers. Felt like almost instantly. I'm sure that wasn't the case because I was a child and my concept of time was not very good. But I gravitated to this company almost immediately. And I know we'll get into some of the whys and the hows. And I've got some thoughts on why Valiant was so special to me. But this is going to be another one of those episodes where Matt winds me up and lets me spin, I think. So I'm gonna let him take over right now and guide this episode to wherever it may roam.
Yeah, so I just want to talk about some of kind of the recent news of what's kind of going on with Valiant.
Okay.
So Valiant, like Dave was kind of talking about, it was one of like another additional publishers, like a superhero publisher. Um, the characters that I kind of know are Bloodshot, who's just like this mercenary dude who can get all shot up. Harbinger, which is like a group kind of like the X-Men of like mutants with different telepathic powers, is when I started reading Valiant. And they had like Turok, Dinosaur Hunter, if you remember the N64 game, Magnus Robot Fighter. This was like in the 90s, the era that you're kind of talking about. This was headed up by Jim Shooter, who was the former editor at Marvel, which I would argue some of the best Marvel events took place in Shooter's run. Shooter has a reputation for being a little bit of an asshole. I wish we had Shooter back today, honestly, to get our continuity very tight, because that was what Shooter was about. But long story short, Valiant was funded with a venture capital firm, and then Acclaim bought it, which they made that Turok Dinosaur Hunter game and some other things. And when that money kind of ran out, they folded up Valiant. The Valiant that I know though is the 2012 like reboot that was headed by Dinesh Shamdasani. Those titles are awesome, man. I got like a lot of them. I purchased a lot of them digitally. I know Dave has the trade paperbacks, but that's the Valiant that I know. And for someone that was looking for like a tight superhero universe, it was just awesome because there weren't 50 books you had to read. I mean, I read like Bloodshot, Harbinger, Shadow Man. There was like just a handful of titles, but it was connected. I remember the or Harbinger Wars crossover where it was just like, I know it was Bloodshot, Harbinger. Yeah, that's the original.
You said the magic word.
Yeah, that's the original one. But the one in 2012,
all 4 volumes in this nice little like hard slip cover. They can all.
So this is like their kind of crisis, not crisis. It was their big event.
That is a 4-letter word. Be careful now. Crisis. Yeah, be careful throwing that one around.
Yeah, but these books were like got a lot of critical acclaim, but weren't the most financially successful, if we could say that. They had really good creative teams like Robert Venditti. I actually was reading, I didn't mention Exo Manowar, who is pretty much like the Iron Man, and he's like the flagship character kind of the universe. I'd say him and Bloodshot.
Well, of the 2012 iteration of Valiant, yes.
Yeah. So
the original Valiant, not so much. I mean, still important, but I wouldn't say. I mean, they built the 2012 relaunch around Exo Manowar.
Yeah.
That wasn't necessarily how it went in the 90s.
So if I remember him, he's pretty much Iron Man, but he was transported from.
That is a bad analogy.
What is he then?
So
he's got a suit of armor, dude, but he's like transported from back in Arthurian times or whatever.
He's a Visigoth. He is a Visigoth.
Okay, Visigoth. Okay.
He is captured by an alien race that comes to Earth, and they just take people from Earth to go work as slaves in their mines on their planet. And then he escapes with one of their power armors. But it's not like a suit of armor like Tony's like Iron Man suit. This has more symbiote type of properties. It's not just like a suit of armor because it's more of like it's like a skin. It's like a sentient skin, but it's also still power armor.
Well, thank you for breaking that down. And then you had Harbinger. I just remember Harbinger, like I think the character Peter Stanchek was like the main guy of
Hmm.
Harbinger, and he had like mental powers where he could read people's minds. And like I really liked Harbinger because like Pete was like an asshole, like, and he abused his power in the
Hmm.
beginning, and it was like obviously kind of does a little bit of a face turn, but they were complicated characters, and I like that. Like he abused his power to get with like a girl, and like that those kind of characters we like. Stories like that are a little bit better, more than just a black and white story. I think that's something that me and Dave both like. And then we talked
Hmm.
about Bloodshot. He's pretty just like, well, you can correct me, but he's like a mercenary. He can get shot up a bunch and regenerates like Wolverine. He's like the Punisher kind of Wolverine, murderous guy. If I just distill it down in like 2 seconds, man, it's not.
I don't know. I mean, you're saying a lot to not say all that much about. Yes, he's not a mercenary. He's actually under the control of like a government agency. They send him out on missions. Then after the mission, they wipe his memory of the mission. They put him
Yes,
in like a stasis where he sort of like
yes.
lives in his happy memories until they need him to go and kill a bunch of people again. And his skin is white because his blood is infused with these nanites that repair him and give him some light superpower type of things. He's stronger, and he's got like heightened abilities and things like that. His regeneration is the nanites rebuilding his body.
So if you want a more thorough description, you have to talk to Dave because he's going to give you more detail than I'm
I
going to
wouldn't
give
say I'm
you.
a Valiant super fan, but I'm definitely in like the top 10% probably.
Yeah, so like I didn't just stumble. I mean, I remember seeing Valiant Comics, but I know you were the one who like, dude, you need to read like Valiant. And I was like a kind of Marvel DC guy, and I was like, I thought I would really struggle getting into the Valiant universe. But that was the thing about the 2012, 2011, 2012 reboot. Like, it was really accessible for someone like me on the complete
Hmm.
outside that knew nothing about those characters. Like, they did a really good job, like, with their reboot and making all those books really compelling and making you want to read them. And it was that
Absolutely.
connected universe, like we said, that we're always looking for.
That's how it was
So
in the 90s too, man. It was all connected in the 90s. That's
I
part of
might
the
have to
reason
go
why I
back.
gravitated towards it.
I might have to go back because I like reading old stuff. It
Some of
doesn't
it
bother me
didn't
that much.
age all that well. I tried to reread all of Magnus Robot Fighter years ago from number 1, and I got through maybe 50 issues before it got into borderline unreadable territory,
Okay.
primarily because of the purchase by Acclaim and the ousting of Jim Shooter.
Yeah.
Um, when Jim left Valiant, it went downhill relatively quickly. Um, my opinion.
So anything that doesn't have Shooter's name on it, just stop at that point.
I don't know.
Once he's
I
not in
mean,
the
some of the
editor in
stuff
chief
was still
seat.
pretty good afterwards, but it was very obvious, when the decline in quality started. Um, it happened very quickly. It went from like pretty high quality books to like, oh god, why am I reading this? Like in a
Yeah.
couple issues. It was pretty
Gotcha.
crazy. At least in Magnus, I didn't go back and read all of the old stuff, and I don't have all of the old stuff anymore. It's one of the things that I still hunt down and collect is old issues of
That's cool.
Valiant. Um, I used to have it all, and then I got rid of it like an idiot. Now I'm buying it all again like an idiot. I don't know
That's
what I'm
what
doing.
happens. That's what happens
Give me a
sometimes.
reason to root through the dollar bins
Yeah,
looking
for
for old
sure.
Valiant stuff. So one key difference between the 90s Valiant and the 2012 relaunch Valiant is that they lost 3 of their marquee characters, in my opinion. And one of them was almost a deal breaker for me. But Magnus Robot Fighter, Turok Dinosaur Hunter, and Solar Man of the Atom were not in the 2012 Valiant universe. Why, you ask? I'll tell you why. Because the original Valiant had the rights to those characters because they purchased them as part of the Gold Key Comics like license availability of characters, and all that stuff happened. I don't know when in the 90s it happened or 80s it happened, but that happened. Those 3 characters were purchased by Valiant. And then before Valiant relaunched, Dark Horse Comics
That's who
bought
bought
the
it. Okay,
license
yep,
to those 3
that's right.
characters. So now you can't have them in Valiant.
That makes
They are,
sense now.
and Dark Horse is doing nothing with them. They did like one really bad Magnus miniseries. And I didn't read the others because the Magnus stuff was so bad.
Yeah, I remember those comics. I forgot who picked up the rights to them, but that makes sense.
And that
But
might, for all I know, Dark Horse doesn't even have them anymore. Who knows?
yeah,
But
that's
at
the
the
last
at the
we've seen
time,
them.
10 years ago, Dark Horse had them.
Yeah.
And then
So
Acclaim also, Acclaim also relaunched a lot of those Valiant titles as Acclaim Comics after they had squeezed all of the blood from the stone of the name Valiant. They relaunched a few of those. Magnus got like I think it's maybe 15 to 25 issues as Acclaim Comics, and that stuff was just
not good. Not good.
not good. Clearly,
Okay.
clearly cash grabbing. Anything, and this holds true. And I know we haven't talked video games on this podcast in a long time,
Yeah.
but if the word Acclaim is involved in something in the 90s, boy, oh boy, there's a very good chance that what you're about to consume is not very good.
Didn't they do NBA Jam?
They might have published it on Super Nintendo,
Published it.
but
Okay.
Midway did the arcade cabinet, I think.
Yeah, it's true. Yep. Yeah. That's
Acclaim
right.
was
That's
one of
right.
those companies that they were like, they would snatch up licenses and release crap licensed games, movies, and cartoons stuff ported. They would port arcade titles. They were just a port company. They didn't do a lot
Okay,
of
so it was a port
original
company.
IP.
It
They were
wasn't.
not, one of the only good games Acclaim made, probably Spider-Man and Venom and Maximum.
Okay.
That was an Acclaim. There's a few that were decent, but by and large, there's an Acclaim logo.
Gotcha.
They did the same thing in comics, man. They bought up licenses and ruined things.
So I want to. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I want to say one more thing about 90s
Sure.
Valiant, because you mentioned how tight the continuity was. 2012 Valiant relaunch, and it was also very tight. 90s Valiant had crossover of characters. That crossover behind me, Unity, the Unity Saga, that was like a 24-part crossover that spanned the entire line, and it's legitimately one of my favorite like superhero crossover stories. It's in the top 10 without a doubt. It's phenomenal.
How lost would I be if I just read Unity straight up? Like
Don't
it
even
didn't read.
bother.
Oh.
Don't
Okay.
even bother.
Okay.
You would not enjoy it. You got to know what's going on with some of those characters to really like. Do you
Okay.
know what a geomancer is and what their purpose is in the Valiant universe?
Don't they have to do with Exo Mana War?
Don't read Unity, man.
Don't
do it.
All right.
The geomancers are charged as the protectors of Earth.
Yeah, no idea.
Their sole responsibility is to make sure that no bad comes to planet, and a lot of what they do is a lot of their lives are purpose driven by like prophecy and vision and feelings and like sort of nudging people in a certain direction to make sure that an event happens or doesn't happen.
They're like the Watchers, but more involved. Like they not like you're saying.
Yeah,
they
I
like
guess so. Yeah,
directing guy get more involved than the Watchers should.
Yeah,
in Marvel,
the Eternal Warrior is typically the dude that's always
okay.
rolling around with a geomancer. He's typically in charge of their protection or their tutelage, since that dude is immortal and been alive since Eric of Dacia, our Visigoth Exo Manowar, was rocking around plowing fields before he got kidnapped.
Bro, you need to start a Valiant podcast. Like you know way too much. You know way too much.
And there was other stuff that they did in the 90s that I thought was, if they would have really stuck with what they were doing in 2012 with everything being connected and expanding on the line. There was a comic called Hardcore that was
okay.
It was just humans, like a group of soldiers.
Yeah. Yep.
But they had like, I don't remember if they had like something implanted in their brain or something, where they could like call down superpowers into their bodies for brief periods of time for missions and whatnot. And it was super violent as was a
Yes.
lot of the stuff that Valiant did. It was pretty
Yes.
violent. It was pretty like on the fringe of what would be acceptable in the '90s in a comic book. Um, and one of the things that I think really encapsulates what Valiant was trying to do is the phrase that's on my little message board behind me. For those that don't watch us on YouTube, it says "Dead is dead," and that tagline was used in a lot of advertisements by Valiant in the '90s. And that was, and this is partially due to what brought Jim Shooter to Valiant in the first place, of his departure, ousting, whatever you want to call it, from Marvel. Um, this was a direct shot at the big two because no one dies in those comics, not forever. Come back. Jason Todd
Yeah.
came back. Everybody come back. Superman came back. Not in the Valiant universe. In the Valiant universe, dead really did mean dead. If they killed a character, that character stayed dead, and that's just how it was. That was one of the things that they were doing. That was a lot of their strategy, a lot of their whole business strategy was to be as unlike Marvel and DC as possible. Why a lot of people were just like, "Oh my god, this is so new and fresh and different. It's not what I'm used to." Connected, and it's superheroes, but it's also not just superheroes; it's other stuff too. They really checked a lot of boxes for whatever type of comic you were.
And we used to. I remember we'd have comics and you'd show me those ads and I'd laugh. And we use Dead is Dead all the time. But I've never really like thought about that time period of like what was going on. So it makes even more sense now.
Yeah.
Like that's just something we throw around in the video game. Dead is dead. You kill a guy, but that makes a
Shots
lot more
fired, man. That
sense.
was shots
Especially
fired.
knowing that Shooter was there. That makes even more sense now about that. So, well, I just wanted to talk like just real. I just want your just quick thoughts on the current state of Valiant. So this is as of like August. So Bleeding Cool, not the most reputable comic book site out there, but reports started coming in that staff started getting late payments of their
Uh-oh.
checks. So yep. So the publisher Fred Price and senior editor Lissa Hawkins have allegedly both been let go. Their Facebook title or their Facebook profiles now say former in front of their previous title. So that's
Okay.
like as of like August-ish this month. So I know like I remember in the pandemic in like 2018, they were bought by a foreign company. I don't know exactly what company, DMG Media, and they put out that Bloodshot movie with Vin Diesel that I never saw. Did you ever see
Neither
that?
did
I'm
I
just
know,
curious.
because I hated the concept of what they were doing.
Okay, so they had put that movie out. Who knows if it was actually good or not, but it was like kind of the peak pandemic. I just remember that. I know
Yeah.
the movie didn't come out in 2018. It was like right before the pandemic hit, and I know that had to hurt it. So I think they might have put it out in theater and shelved it, and then just it was like straight to, maybe not straight, but very quickly to like deep to video on
Oh, dude,
demand, or it might have been
yeah,
same day video
it
on
went to
demand.
like rental via streaming very,
Yes, or
very
something
quickly. I
very
remember it was like
quickly.
within a month, I was like $10 to watch Bloodshot. What? That's not a
Yeah.
good sign. This can't be any good.
Okay. And that wasn't the case. Like now, that's kind of what the standard is. It's like
No.
45 days, but it used to take a couple months to get something. So that wasn't a good sign. Um, then this was on August 11th. I think on CBR, Comic Book Resources. Valiant will be moving to one book per month. It's going to start. There's a Bloodshot series that will start in September, and then there's a Book of Shadows. I don't know if I'm assuming that's like a Shadow Man joint
Yeah,
that will
Book of
be
Shadows
in
is a 4-issue miniseries. It's all Shadow Man
okay.
characters. That ends in.
Okay. So Book of Shadows is supposed to come back again in January, apparently.
So
So
there's
this was
a.
supposed to be the year of Valiant. 2022 is the year of Valiant. I'm not feeling very good about the year of Valiant right now when I hear people aren't being paid. Your editor and associate editor or assistant editor are both former. And more importantly, when the line contracts to, they were already at like maybe 3 or 4 books a month. When you go to one book a month, it's not a good sign.
I'm not sure about that one book a month thing, because there's another EXO series that starts in November. It's pre-solicited to start in November.
Is it coming out? Is it actually going to come out, or is it going to get
Yes.
resolicited?
Oh,
It could get
I mean, they
resolicited though.
started talking about that last month.
Okay,
It
we'll
was in
see.
this month's previews again too. It's coming out in November, along with that Bloodshot series that starts in September.
We'll see
And
when
they
I get
just
my
finished
previews
another
catalog this month.
5-issue series called Armorclads. That wrapped up like last month.
How many book? Do you know how many books they've had?
Of
Like
what?
solicited each month? Is it three,
It's
two,
three or
five,
less. Three or
three or
less every
less?
month.
Okay. Okay.
I'll tell you this, man. When they started to marvel this thing, that was the first sign that the ship was starting to sink.
And this is what I'm getting at. I think the ship is sinking.
You know,
I think it's sinking
they had an
quickly.
Exo Manowar series that was nearing or over 30 issues. Then all of a sudden it was like, no, we're just gonna do relaunch after relaunch after every new story is a new number one. I have no idea if I pick up Bloodshot next month. I have no idea if that's a brand new Bloodshot comic or if all the stuff that I read starting in 2012 still happened. I don't know what the deal is. Reader, I'm not supposed to, I don't know how I'm supposed to doom this anymore. It doesn't look like a connected superhero universe.
Yeah.
Armorclads was good though. I liked that. And they did
Okay.
say it's coming back for another series.
Was that like connected to the universe, or was that kind of its own thing?
It's set in the Valiant universe, but
Whatever that means.
in a new part of the universe that has,
Okay. Explored. Okay.
it was really good. Really liked it.
That's good. Yeah, no, you said you liked it, so I'm glad that that is the case. So, do you ever think that we'll get a third publisher to mix it up with the big two in a serious way?
So
In
we're
the
not we're
superhero, not image, like whatever titles, but uh, maybe the Radiant Black universe or whatever. But like, do you ever think we'll really get a third publisher to compete with these guys? No.
I don't know, man. I mean, I want to say yes
Okay.
because, you know, it happens every 5 years or so. Feels like something new. But it's generally done not very well. I don't know. Are you familiar with Humanoids?
I know
That
the
publisher?
publisher. I haven't really
Yeah.
picked any of
So
their stuff up.
I think it was 2 years ago. They converted their whole line. It was like, hey, we're now a connected superhero universe. All we're doing is publishing these superhero books. They're all connected. They're all ongoing series. Super gung ho. Let's go get it. And
Okay.
within 4 months, they scrapped it all
That
because it was
stinks.
not good. It was
Yeah.
poorly written, poorly drawn, not compelling stories.
So we don't really know. We're kind of maybe ish hopeful, but yeah,
I
like
just realistically, I don't see it happening
yeah, that
due to
on
the
it.
shift in the way that comics are consumed.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know who you would market that and how, because to grow into even what Valiant did in 2012, they had, you know, 6 to 10 books on the roster that all sort of were connected to each other. They weren't all ongoing series. You know, Quantum and Woody just did the 2 miniseries and had a couple of events that were miniseries. The money that it takes
Yeah.
to
That's
execute
the
that,
problem.
you gotta pay 6 to 10 writers and artists that are of a high enough quality to attract people that read really good superhero books already. Like that's hurdle number one, and that is extremely difficult to overcome because the only way that happens is if you stumble upon all of that talent that hasn't yet been
It's
discovered,
yeah.
or you have to overpay for talent that exists already that's doing other things. This is
Yeah.
like sports free agency.
Yeah.
It's
It
the
is a
same
good
problem. You either luck out getting young talent no one knows about yet, or you overpay for established talent that's doing else with someone.
yeah. That's true. I'm seeing like little pockets with like the image, the massive verse that we love, and Jeff Johns is kind of doing his thing at Image, and like there's some good stuff too
Is he
as
though?
well. Huh? Yeah,
Though
with the Geiger universe. Yeah, I think so.
the Geiger universe so far has been one 5-issue miniseries and a one shot.
Yeah, but Junkyard Joe's coming out. His was solicited, and that's in the Geiger universe.
Yeah, I know, but like, that's
This
dude.
takes
This
time,
is
baby. This
no.
takes time, baby.
Sorry, no. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying this one.
All right.
Sell.
So Jeff Johns isn't doing anything anymore. So we got the massive verse. I think there's going to be a rise of people that do things on like Kickstarter and Indiegogo. The problem with that
It's
is
going to be on
one,
Substack,
I don't want to
man.
overpay. Huh?
Substack. That's what
Substack,
it'll be.
whatever, that
Something
too.
like that.
The problem with that stuff though is like, one, for those products, and they are good products, you are overpaying. Like, you're paying a ridiculous fee, 20, 30 bucks per book, $10 for shipping. And I want to open up my previews catalog, look at something, and have it in the store for me to pick up, or go on, you know, my comic shop or where you get your comics, order it and have it delivered. I don't want to wait a year and a half to read a superhero comic book story.
Right.
I want it to, I know it's going to be done, and I want to get it on a monthly basis and be happy with it. So
I think the closest you get is the massive verse.
I think you're right, man. I think you're right. I don't, it's unfortunate, like, because the Valiant that I did read, like, I read a lot of that 2012 Exo Man Award, and I kind of was doing that last summer. Like, I have all these digital comics, I should read them. Like, I really enjoyed them.
Yeah,
I reread really a lot of the stuff, and it's really good. But I guess this is just one of those circumstances where we enjoy the books that we have, enjoy it for a while it lasted, and kind of go from there.
I mean, I'm dipping my toes back into Valiant.
Okay.
This Armorclad's book got me interested enough again that I'm gonna pick up Bloodshot.
Okay.
And I'm gonna pick up Exo Man of War if it does come out.
Okay.
So we'll see how it goes. Maybe they pick up some steam again. Maybe the problem was those two editors that they let go. Maybe they were steering the ship in the wrong direction. Maybe now we'll start to see a new foundation be built. Who knows?
And rise from the ashes. Like,
no, let me the title like, again. We'll have to do another episode where they fall and then come back again.
Well, I'm gonna get Armorclads because it's on a deep discount now. I can get them for like $2 an issue digitally, so like $10. I'll definitely read that, and yeah, let me know how Exo and Bloodshot are. If you think they're good and you're digging them, I'll start reading.
It's really going to come down to whether or not Bloodshot book is like its own thing, or if they're actually like playing in the same sandbox as they were 10 years ago. And if it's its own thing, like it's Marvel style where we don't care about continuity, we're just gonna do miniseries over and over again. If we relaunch, I'll probably not stick around, but I'll find out.
Yeah, man, that's it. I just wanted to know this was good.
Dude, anytime you want to talk about 90s Valiant, I got more stuff
to talk
about.
Dude, my man's like, he's got the stat corrections. Like, no, his skin is white because of the nanites infused in his bloodstream and da. Yeah, this guy's into Valiant. He's into Valiant, guys. I don't know what to tell you. So that's all I had. I just want to know your thoughts on Valiant. It's something that we both enjoyed. One of us more so than the other. So
yeah, well, typically when I find something that I really like, I go to extremes and then burn myself out.
You sound like me. That's me to a T.
I feel like that might be just a millennial curse, man. That's just how a lot of us are wired for whatever reason. But yeah, I love Valiant. Matt loves Valiant, but not as much as me. We've established that.
Definitely not.
90s were great. There's really not a lot of that stuff in trade, although the current iteration of Valiant has printed a lot of that stuff. You can get a lot of those in hardcover. Those classic runs, like the first 12 issues, definitely worth picking up. Remember, at Valiant, dead is dead. And if they're not careful, they're going to be too. Goodbye, everybody.